And we're speaking this afternoon with Jeanne Moeller, who's the incumbent Mosquito Board Commissioner, seat 2.
Seat 2.
Jeanne, if you don't mind, we always ask people if they would start out just telling us 2 things: who you are and why you want to be on the Mosquito Board. Again.
Well, I am Jeanne Moeller, and I am running for the 3rd term on the Mosquito Control Board. I find the science, the technology, and the research of mosquito control absolutely fascinating. Never in my wildest dreams when I ran and won in 2006 did I think I would be afforded the opportunity to associate and be educated by international scientists. I find it fascinating. I have been the chair 3 times in 8 years, and since 2007 I've been the educational chair, which I find very stimulating because I really am not fully employed. I just work some part-time work by choice, and so I have a lot of time to be able to talk about who, what, why, where, and how of mosquito control, and I've done that over 500 times in 8 years.
So, originally, where are you from? How'd you come to St. Augustine?
I ran away from home.
Oh.
My favorite aunt was here, but I always told my mother, I came down in the summer of '64 and I said, when I finish school, I am moving to Florida. And she said, oh, no one in the family has ever moved out of our hometown. And I said, well, I'm the first. So in April the 1st of '69, I came to Florida. Then I married, and I've been here ever since. I absolutely love it.
In the St. Augustine area?
In the St. Augustine area.
Right.
Yep. The only time I ever get homesick is when I know the leaves are changing.
Where was home?
Lewistown, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Right outside of Penn State.
Well, one thing that's on the minds of a lot of the citizens here in town is the recent millage rate hike. So I was wondering if you could just talk to us a little bit about the justification and the thought process and how you guys arrived at the number that you did.
Yes. Since 2006, we have not raised the millage rate, nor have we gone back to a rollback rate. And over the past 6 years, we have used about $938,000 of reserve monies. Quite frankly, in 2012, I attempted to raise the millage rate by $1.08 a year on a $2,000 house and lost. It was an election year. And in 2013, I tried to raise the millage rate by about $1.51 so that this did not have to happen. There are formulas that we have to follow through the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. And what part of that is, in special districts, you cannot borrow money, you can't float a bond, you can't have a mortgage, you cannot encumber future boards to debt. So it has been on the agenda for years to build a new complex. It is a full complex. It's not just an office building. And so there was no way they could build that building without raising the funds, which I tried to do and was defeated 2 years in a row, so that nothing had to be done at such a huge rate. What it really boils down to is about $2 a month, and millage is only set for a year. And so a $200,000 house is about paying $2,450 a year more than they were. The formula for mosquito control is you can have 31%, additional 31% of your operating budget in reserves and contingency funds. And we've been sitting on a little over $4 million, and every year we go to do the budget, Dax is this is not a qualified reserve. What are you going to do with it? Well, we're going to build a building. Well, now's the time. Once the end of this fiscal year, which starts yesterday, October 1st, and ends September 30th. Once this fiscal year is over, a new millage rate will be set. But the good part about it is that mosquito control, whether I win or lose this election, will now be set for, we will be out of a deficit budget, and we will fall within the right guidelines, and we will have the money to build the building. It should leave us with about $1.8, $2.1 million in reserves. And because it's a living budget, that's why there's a difference.
You said that the millage that was just passed, the increase was for 1 year?
1 year, yes ma'am.
Okay.
Millage rates are only ever for 1 year. And even if we would have gone just to the rollback rate, we would have been in a deficit because we started at 0.1213. The rollback rate was 0.1267. So we were already branded as raising the millage rate. I personally feel if you don't have the spine, whether it's an election year or a non-election year, to do the right thing for the taxpayers, then you really don't need to be there. And it was really the right thing and the right time to do it.
Would you like to expound on that a little bit more? Perhaps talk about the building and the condition of the building and things of that nature that you felt new building was needed?
Yes, there is no more room at mosquito control in which to grow. We are no longer under, and have not been for many years, under the current ADA standards. We couldn't hire an accountant or a receptionist who would be in a wheelchair. We can't get them down the halls. We can't even get them into the restrooms. We cannot allow the public when we have a seminar, and we do that once a year. We are one of the only districts who do that. Brings in about 170 people. It's a money maker for us. We can't bring anyone in who can't get up the stairs because there's no elevator. We are still on drain fields and septic, which we often have to have drained because they're not currently working. It's about $20,000 to put water and sewer in. If we're going to spend money, we need to spend it on something for future use and long term, and this building will give us about 40 years of good service. But the most exciting part about this building is that even though we only do applied research in St. Johns County, meaning we look at the chemicals that we use to the kill rate so that we know we can use a half an ounce or a quarter ounce of pesticides, or whether we have to increase that the next year because of resistance. We do a lot of testing of equipment. Mosquito control is very specialized. We do a lot of training for research for equipment from other manufacturers. We end up with that free equipment, and we're also paid to be able to do that. So when we move out to the new building, we will have much more space to be able to generate outside grant monies, which will help us keep the millage rate low.
So you said the new building is going to be good for 40 years?
That's what the builders are telling us.
And you currently have 28 employees. How many do you think you're going to have in 5 years?
No more than 28.
Really?
If they need to do anything, I have never been opposed to an aerial program, but those of you who have been here know that in 2006, I spoke against purchasing a helicopter for $1.8 million. Commissioner Sunderman and I sat at the table for 9.5 months, and we got rid of that $1.8 million helicopter. I'm not opposed to having a helicopter. I'm not opposed to someone buying one, but we don't need a Cadillac to do a plow's job. So if they decide they need to do something in the future, they'll probably look at a helicopter. But that's far in the future. That's not in the next 4 or 5 years.
Have you seen plans for the new building?
Yes, I
Is
have.
there a helipad on it?
There is space for helipad, but that is not being done right this minute. Way back when the prior board purchased the property. Their thing was they wanted to build the building, they wanted to have a helicopter pad, they wanted to have a hangar because they had purchased this helicopter, the whole bit. Well, when we donated the property to the EOC, and when I say we donated the property, under Chapter 388, you just can't donate property. You either have to sell it or you have to get something in kind of equal or greater value. And the equal or greater value to us was the road and the infrastructure coming in, which cost the county approximately $1 million to put in $900 and some thousand dollars. That was our in kind. And also we were supposed to be able to get our zoning, which would have included a helicopter pad. However, Commissioner Mays decided that it was a gentleman's agreement and he didn't sign it, and the board had changed, and so we had to go back and argue with the county to give us that zoning. And Commissioner Stevenson decided that she would give us the zoning, she would vote for the zoning, but we couldn't have the helicopter pad because it was too noisy, which I find extremely humorous because they are now putting in another gun range right next to us, and there was already a gun range next to us, and we are in an industrial complex. So I found it interesting, but I wasn't at that meeting because I probably would have argued. And our attorney, then attorney and past assistant director and Commissioner Browning gave into that, and so there was no helicopter pad.
I want to just do a
Very interesting, our local politics.
Oh, sure.
quick follow-up on the number of employees. You said you have 28 now and expect 28 in the future, but your payroll and your benefit costs are increasing quite a bit in next year's budget. What's fueling
Health
that?
insurance, but also, what also is happening is we have not done a pay adjustment or a pay scale adjustment for approximately the last 6 years, and it's also time to be able to do that. We hire anywhere from 6 to 10 seasonal employees, and in the past we've paid them, started at $10 an hour, it went to $12 an hour. When the county tells us that you can't get an apartment in St. Johns County for less than $16 or $17 an hour, we have to be able to pay our people a living wage.
So no one's got a raise in 6 years?
I didn't say they
Oh.
didn't get a raise. I said
No
we
adjustments.
didn't look at the pay scale adjustments.
You mentioned not being able to come to a meeting. When you passed your budget and the millage increase, people are allowed to phone in, and there was confusion at that meeting, or is that not correct?
Miss Brandhurst was ill. It was the first time that we were able to do that. We probably should have tried it before. Commissioner Brandhurst, as far as I know, was on a cell phone, and I'm not so sure the connections were okay. It would have been better had she had the technology at home to be on Skype or FaceTime. She didn't have that at home. That's the way it really was set up, and she had to come through the whole meeting. And in addition to the fact she wasn't feeling well, I think kind of sort of made it a little bit more difficult.
Did you, excuse me.
But she did vote,
Mm-hmm.
and we did get through it.
Why don't you televise the meetings?
We were televising the meetings for a very long time, until maybe '07 or '08. They are on a DVD. Anyone can call and ask for them. We stopped televising them in October for a variety of reasons. Number one, the quality of the DVD was very poor. The verbal, the voice part, audio was poor. you couldn't really tell who was speaking because it was just a straight shot, wide shot of everyone at the table. And we will probably go back to doing that, but not until after this new complex is done.
May I just get a clarification from you on the pay scale? Because in my mind, that's adjusting the ranges for the positions that
That's
you
correct.
have.
Right.
So, you say you're not adding people, so are you having retroactive adjustments to employees to fit them in the range?
No.
Or is that prospectively?
All that's in this year's budget is, I want to say $15,000. It may be 10, somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 for some pay adjustments in the pay scales and a 5% increase across the board. Now, we have not made that final decision because I wanted to see where we were with the budget and where the millage rate was going. This is going to air before the vote, but I personally believe that that 5% needs to be separated a little bit. If we continue to give the top 5% and we give the bottom 5%, the bottom is always going to be on the bottom. And so I would like to see us do that 5% at the bottom third, 3% at the top third, 2% at the very top, and split it. And
Did you say that your building right now that you're in is not ADA approved?
no, ma'am, it is not.
And has there been any complaints?
There has not been any complaints, no.
Because that would have to be rectified immediately.
Yeah, we have not had any complaints, but it's not. And I hope we don't have any complaints because it's very costly.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to just restore or do some reconstruction in your house. My husband and I put on a new roof, and I took out a sunroof, and I said, you got to fix that hole in the ceiling in the kitchen. It's embarrassing. And he said, uh-huh. And 3 years later, I said, you got to fix that hole in the kitchen. It's embarrassing. So finally, I gave him a deadline, and then I called in a person this summer in June to fix my ceiling. And he got, in my dining room and kitchen are all one room. When he got to the kitchen, he said, I got to take down the cabinets. So why do you need to take down them? Because they're too high. I don't have anywhere to bang up. So I said to my husband, they're 25-year-old cabinets. I got to have new cabinets. So this $600 little job we were going to do to fix a hole as big as that light ended up costing me over $4,000. Thank goodness I have a small kitchen. But so, and the same thing, you will get on a roll at mosquito control. We will still be on the island. We will still have gas tanks on the incline. We will still not have enough room.
Jeanne, there has been talk about, excuse me, or I guess it was a few years ago, there was some serious talk that turned into not too serious talk about the county actually ending up with the mosquito control district and just the scale and everything and cost sharing and sharing people and sharing maintenance crews and sharing everything. And everyone, I don't know, and I'm not sure to the person, but I don't ever recall any person associated with the board who hasn't fought that pretty much tooth and nail. Is that, I mean, where do you, would you?
I was the chair in 2010 when all of that took over, and I worked very, very hard and spoke over 42 times on why having an independent mosquito control is much better than having anything run through the county. Number one, mosquito control in districts that are run by county commissions are placed under road and bridge. Palaca, for instance, only has one truck for their mosquito control, and they hire everything else out. They're under contract with Clark. The same thing happens pretty much with Clay County. When people were dying in 2011 and 2012 in Jacksonville, the county commission, because Duval County is run under, they have a separate building and all of that, they cut their budgets 13%. And so anytime mosquito control, where there's a thing, it comes off of mosquito control. Mosquito control in the state of Florida, if you didn't have it, we would not be as populated as we are. And quite frankly, sometimes that might be a good thing. But you would not have Nassau. You would not have any of the Army or the Navy bases. You would not have Disney World. And we protect the 15 independent districts that are in the state of Florida are all on the coastline. There's a reason for that, because it's salt and freshwater mosquitoes. And we protect the billions of dollars of tourism industry that comes in to the state. We at St. Johns County protect the tourism industry and help maintain the 24% of the workforce that works in that tourism industry. We have the first case of imported chikungunya, and I stress imported. We have not had a local born mosquito-borne disease here since 2003. We're very, very proud of that, but we have very good professional staff that know how to do their jobs. So yes, it's very important to maintain that. And you can look at figures you want. Statistics can skew any kind of figure however you want to skew it. But we, as independent districts, all we do is mosquito control. We don't look at trash pickup. We don't fill potholes. We look at mosquito control, and that's all we do, and that's all we concentrate on. And you know what? In the past 6 years, you've paid about $24.26 a year. Your children have not come home with a mosquito-borne disease. You've been able to sit on your patio. You've been able to go to the amphitheater. You were able to go to the Mumford concert and not be bitten to death by mosquitoes, which, by the way, cost us $10,000.
The Mumford?
Yes. Because there were so many events that were happening in so many places, all those areas needed to be treated, including every single storm drain in downtown St. Augustine, to keep our people safe. But even more importantly than keeping our people safe, our tourists safe, we wanted to keep our residents safe. It cost us $10,000. That was not included in the Mumford budget. And this year, we will order $408,000 worth of chemical, which is about $100,000 more than we normally use, because of all the events and all of the people that are supposedly coming in for the 450th.
Thanks for bringing that up. I was going to ask about that.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, you budgeted for the 450th?
Yes, we did.
And extra chemicals?
Yes,
and
we
how
did.
much was that?
About 100,000.
It's 191% increase. So 402,000 versus 138. Okay.
The
And
management of the day-to-day operations, are they the ones that also make the decisions on, when things are treated, the schedule of treatment?
Yes. There's a very specific formula and regulation for that. People say, well, how much do you really have to pay your staff? But those staff 3 times a week do about the field staff, which is about 20 of them, do 720 human rate counts a week in the middle of the season, meaning that they have on no DEET, they have on short sleeves, and they need to stand there for so many seconds to see how many mosquitoes land on them. It's called a landing rate count. If so many mosquitoes land in so many seconds, we get to treat. If no mosquitoes land, we don't get to treat. If too many mosquitoes land, we go out and fog at night. So it's not a simple process. There are 44 different kinds of mosquitoes in the state of Florida, 28 in St. Johns County. 8 of them carry disease, and every single one of them requires a different treatment.
How many in St. John?
28 different species. It's 3,500 plus in the world.
And how many cause diseases here in St. John?
8.
8.
What do you think differentiates you from your opponent?
I have no idea what my opponent is up to, or why my opponent is running, or what his issues are. So I'm not so sure how to answer that question.
Okay.
You guys haven't done any stumping together or speaking or?
No.
Who is the person in charge, and how many, I guess, management staff members are in the organization other than the field staff? Is it 8?
We have a director who's in charge of the whole thing. We have a master's level accountant, a receptionist, administrative secretary. We have 1 supervisor, and then we have a biologist and biology tech. Everyone else is field staff. And we have an education specialist who does lots of public education, including public school education that fits the sunshine standards, which is also free to the school board.
Does the education specialist educate the staff? Is that like
And he also
extra
educates the
training or
staff,
something, or is that
yes.
outside stuff, or is it both?
Both.
Aside from the building construction, what do you think are the top 2 challenges for the board over the next 1 to 2 years?
I believe that the challenges are going to be keeping us disease-free, educating us, and working very closely with the St. Johns County Health Department, who, by the way, are excellent partners.
Are there any plans shaping up for the property here at the beach after the new building is constructed and the move is completed?
No, in order for us to be able to do something, we really need to do some assessments, which we have not started yet. I truly suspect, and I don't mean this in any way as derogatory, but I suspect that it's going to take a minimum of 4 months and a maximum of 6 months to even get the permits out of the county. And so I don't see this building being done for probably the next 2 years, if not 2.5 years. So that's going to be the main thrust for the next little bit, and still maintaining over at the beach.
Do you think there's a need to develop a strategic plan for the board, or does one already exist?
We have one, but it's really more of a living plan, because this year's been a very wet year, which means there's been very few saltwater mosquitoes. Because the more rain you get in the marsh, it washes the salt water out. It just dilutes the salt water and they can't survive. But in a really, really dry year, you don't have a lot of mosquitoes. So, the plan is there. There's an evacuation plan. There's a disaster preparedness plan. There's a chemical plan. I mean, there's just all kinds of really good plans that are over there. Do we really have it on one piece of paper? The answer is no. Do I feel we need it? I don't think so.
think you mentioned that the reserve budget is right now about $4 million, is that correct?
Yes, but when the tax dollars come in, our total budget this year will be, our total income this year will be about 9 point something, 9.1, 9.2.
This is 9.5.
It may be, because it gets adjusted as it goes along. And the operating and capital budget is about 7.1, I'm sorry. And so that leaves us about 1.8, 2.1, depending on whether or not we have to get out the helicopter to spray.
So you try to keep a healthy budget or a healthy amount of money
Yes.
in reserves in case there's extenuating
Absolutely
circumstances.
correct. Because we cannot borrow money, I personally, I've attended workshops with our ex-Senator Bob Graham on bioterrorism. I just came back in June from a statewide workshop with health departments from all over the state and mosquito control professionals on the dengue and the chikungunya outbreak. And I can tell you that those professionals who are a lot more educated and smarter than I am in the field are very, very concerned about the disease and a major outbreak. We now have 11 cases of chikungunya, native born in the state of Florida. And we still have dengue in Florida. I can tell you that when dengue came out in the Keys, even though it's just a snare strip, it's 120 miles long, it cost them over $5 million to clean it up. And I think we could go through $750,000 to $1.5 million just like that if we end up with a disease to clean it up. So yes, I am concerned that the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs says we have to stay within 1.8 to 2.1 million because we could go through it in a minute.
They say you have to stay at that level?
That's the formula.
Oh.
It's
I thought
the
it was-
formula
what was
not to be
31%
nagged at.
that you mentioned at the
That's of the
beginning?
operating budget,
So you're not supposed to have a reserve larger than a third of your operating budget?
correct?
Well, you'll be over that next year even with.
Yes, but now it's a certified line item. It's not a reserve because we want to. It's not a future reserve. It is now a current. We've signed the contract. It's done. It's spent. It's in reserves. We can't take it out and do anything else with it.
But the remaining reserve, that's are still more than a third of the operating budget, aren't they? Even at, well, I guess it depends on
Your
how you do it. You're
operating
picking up
budget is
another
2.9
2.2 million.
Yes, sir. But our operating budget is 2.9.
Mhm.
So if you divide that, you're looking at 1. And then you get a contingency budget of 31%.
And did you vote for the building to be built?
Yes, I did. We originally moved at first to build a chemical facility out on the new property. That building cost us approximately $215,000 because of the way it had to be built and the infrastructure and all of that to go with it. And I was perfectly happy leaving it there. But then it came up that maybe we should just build a lab. And when Mr. Yoker and Mr. Hare were there, who were our architects, I said, if we build this in little pieces, are we really saving money? And the answer was a definite no, that every time you need to add something, that you need to add on to it, it's going to cost you more money. In that budget, the county is charging us $125,000 in impact fee, and we're a county agency. So we have asked for our attorney to please ask for an exemption for that. I doubt that it will be forthcoming, but we have asked for that. We also managed to cut the cost because we have a tax ID number. so we're non-taxable for sales tax. We've been able to cut that by about $61,000 because we can order equipment or materials through us that Harold can't order, which cut us down another $61,000. We have tried very, very hard to do this in the most efficient, cost-effective way that we can do it and still have room if we needed it for future growth. Because with the county building, every time you build a new home and you set up a new subdivision, you are taking mosquitoes out of their own natural habitat and you are bringing them into the urban areas, and we have more of them. We have more of them because this much water, standing water, generates in our area 4 million mosquitoes in 7 months. If only 25% of the larvae that get in here survive. And so when you say to people you need to cover, tip, and drain, and they look at you like it's not my job, it's what they heard down in the Keys when people had dengue, it's not my job, you come do it. We have a problem when people don't want to clean their gutters and they get full of leaves and they're wet and they're damp, they're growing their own. It's going to cost us more money year after year after year to take care of mosquitoes. I don't quite understand why people think they don't have a responsibility, and it becomes a true health hazard.
Is there anything that we didn't ask you that we should have asked you?
I don't think so. I'm running because I enjoy it. I have the time to put into it. I find the science inspiring. I have tried to stay informed. I try very hard to make intelligent, sensible decisions at the table. Doesn't mean you all have to like my votes, but I have at least attempted to do my homework and ask people what they think. When we had a design for the first building, I talked to 5 different engineers and they all told me what was wrong with it. None of them had put in a bid, none of them were here, and it's gone. And so, and I insisted before we put a new design back out that it be at least 10% bigger, because the offices were so small that you couldn't have gotten 2 people in them if you wanted to, and that's just not the way people need to work. And I hope people will vote for me on November 7th. And if they don't, well, they're going to be back on budget and out of a deficit budget because they had this fine to raise the millage rate. They will, win the next 2 years, have a complex that they can be proud of and that we can start generating outside grant monies. And for that, I am very, very proud.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Very much.